Hello everyone, here's Fabi again, and today we have a very interesting piece. We are going to talk about why sometimes our gluten and dairy-free recipes just don't work. Well, I'm a pastry chef specialized in gluten and dairy-free baking, and I teach you how to profit with this kind of product. And if you think this content is interesting for you and you don't want to miss anything, just like here and subscribe to this channel. Well, why sometimes the recipe just don't work? It happened to me. I know sometimes happen to you. Actually, it happened to me many times for a long time, because to bake gluten and dairy-free using this kind of special ingredients, different sometimes, you need to study, you need to test, but don't believe that because your recipe is gluten and dairy-free, that's the reason why it's not working. Because we can find many reasons for that, and we are going to talk about some of them. I'll go with you through some of the reasons that might be what might be happening to your baking. Well, first is because we replace the wheat flour in order to have a gluten-free product. This flour replacement might be the first one, because sometimes we just see there few different flours and then we just take one of them and replace without considering the water absorption. The flours, different flours, we have more than 20, just the ones I know and I tested, they absorb water in different ways. Which means if you replace one for another one that absorbs water in a different way, what can happen is that your preparation is going to be too dry or heavy or crumbly. It's not alone the fact that it's gluten-free or so, but maybe you've done something wrong. The gluten-free flour mix, I tested 6 different ones, the ones we buy ready in the supermarket. They are all good, but some of them are very good for bread baking, another one's for sponges, another one for pizza, and there we go. And sometimes you just got a recipe that you should be using one gluten-free flour mix, and you can't find, and then you use another one. They have different compositions, and this might make a huge difference in your recipe. Here in the company, we don't use the ready ones. I make my own, but just in order to have standard recipes, like that every time we bake, the outcome is the same is expected, and I don't take the risk that one day I find one brand or other. For you to understand, the gluten-free flour mixes, they have different stabilizers. They have sometimes the same kind of flour, but in different amounts, because they change the recipes. Some of them milk added to it, so they can be very different. Talking about stabilizers, this can also be one of the reasons. Stabilizers, I'm talking about xanthan gum or guar gum or psyllium. They are different stabilizers. They should be used in different quantities. You don't use the same amount when you replace. Normally you don't. Why do we use? First, we don't have to use all the time. Not all the recipes need a stabilizer like that. But I have to say 2 things about it. When you use the stabilizer, when choosing one of the stabilizers, they add some moisture, they bind the ingredients together, they bring elasticity, and you need to know what do you need. This is one of the ways to choose the stabilizers. When you have the right amount, you have to add. Don't underestimate, because for 1 kilo of flour mixes, you need like 10 grams of xanthan, for example, and maybe half from this amount from psyllium. Psyllium absorbs more water. And then what I can tell you is if you measure by eye, or you don't have an accurate scale, which in my case I even use a micro scale in order to, when I need 3 grams, to be exactly 3 grams. For the flours, of course, this is not that important. Just a normal scale, which normally starts in 2 grams, will be okay. But for stabilizers, I would invest in a micro scale. And one of the things that might destroy a recipe is the amount of stabilizer, the wrong amount of stabilizer. Well, and then we have old flours, not old, but old. How long it lasts a flour? It depends on the flour, like ground almonds and things like that. I would, if you don't use a lot, I would even keep in the fridge, because they don't last very long. But for all the flours you buy, you have an expire date. You go in the supermarket, or your suppliers are going to supply to you, and then you look this expire date. Once you open the packaging, the expire date is not that one anymore. I would never, for flour, I would never, for the dry ones, keep them for more than 3 months. If you know, observe the characteristics from the flour, and if you notice that something is different, the how this looks like, the smell, or anything, the texture, just don't use the flour, because you might destroy your recipes. Well, how do you storage the flours? What we do is to keep them in airtight containers. We wash them very nicely, and we storage the flours there for no more than 3 months. And even if that's your business, you have to label. Get used to it. You have to label everything, the day you opened and how long it lasts, or what is the expire date, is very, very important. Well, when we talk about nuts, for example, when you buy ground nuts, when you blend it on site, is different. When you buy the ground ones, they last a little bit longer. And when you decide to buy the nuts and blend in your kitchen, I would do it at the moment I'm going to use, because once you store just nuts, they are going to last longer. I love to blend, so I buy ground almonds because we use in big amounts, but I love to blend myself the pistachio, because all the recipes with pistachios, when you blend it at the moment you are going to use, you still have this moisture or the oils from the nuts, and this adds a very nice aroma to the preparations. Well, now one more of the reasons that your baking goods might not be working: the yeast, the baking powder. Well, you need not always, but you need a raising agent. And when you use baking powder, bicarbonate, or yeast, you have to be careful, because the baking powder, when you add the baking powder and you add also liquids, it starts to, the chemical reactions start to happen, and then Make sure when you add your baking powder that is in the end of your preparation that you mix it and you bake it, so you bring it to bake immediately. For that, I would preheat my oven and make sure the oven is ready to receive my preparation once I add my baking powder and I mix it. And of course, don't destroy your preparation at this moment. So when you mix, you have to be very, very careful when you add the baking powder in the end of the preparation. If you use an expired one, because this is an ingredient that normally don't change so visually you can't see any change, but never use an expired one because might don't be working anymore. Well, we have to think also that if we don't do it, which means mix it and bring it right away to bake, the reaction might start to happen while is still the dough still on the bowl, and so when you bring it to bake, it's not going to raise properly. Then there are many things you have to be careful when using raising agents. Well, another thing is the levain. If we are talking about sourdough, about bread, if you use integral flours like chickpeas and things like that, that are more savory, that have a strong taste, this taste is going to be added to your preparation. I hope it's clear. Second thing is, this is a rule when working with sourdough. If your starter is not raising, it's not strong enough, it's not raising, your bread, your pizza, your cake, because you can also bake cakes with that, it's not going to raise as well. This is a rule you always have to understand. If the starter is not working, it's not going to work inside your preparation as well. Well, let's go. One more reason why your preparations might not be working is to over mix the mixture. I can give some examples. For example, you mix eggs and then you bring air into it and you don't have a raising agent. This aeration you created with eggs and sugar, eggs and butter, sugar and butter. This is what will make the cake raise. You created this aeration. When you add your dry ingredients and you overmix and you lose this aeration you created, of course, this is going to be one of the reasons your cake's not raising. Your batter will be very heavy and it's not going to look like you wanted this to do. I made the tests because I like to test. Even when you know in theory that something is like this or that, I like to test. And I took one of our best sellers, which is the Brazilian carrot cake, and I mixed the liquids, and then you mix together with the dry ingredients and you just whisk very, very carefully. I thought, so we are mixing, we blend the liquids, why we don't blend everything together? And it's just completely different, just don't work. And the taste, the texture, how it raises everything is completely different. What else? When you overmix the baking powder, like you leave this to the end and then you overmix it, this might not work as well. When you don't add the right amount of raising agents, this might be the problem as well. Well, let's go to one more reason, which believe me or not, is one of the most common ones. When you open the oven door, it's a legend that I can't open the oven door, because my grandma used to say that no, it's not. is the truth. What happens is you should, if you have to wait like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, you should wait 30 or 40 minutes to open the oven door. But sometimes we look, the light is not very clear, we are not very used to the oven or to this preparation specifically, and we find ourselves very tempted to open the oven door. When can we do it? When at least 80% of the baking time is done. Never before, because when your cake is raising, it happens because of the heat. The heat helps the preparation to helps the chemical reactions to happen. And when the oven is very hot and these chemical reactions are happening, and you open the door and you drop the temperature, because there's cold air that comes inside, is going to drop the temperature. Sometimes the structure from your cake, from your sponge for your preparation is not ready, is not hard, solid enough. The bubbles are not created, still not created, and then you drop the temperature and you interrupt these chemical reactions. Then might happen that your preparation wasn't ready, wasn't solid enough, and will collapse. When the oven is too cold or is too hot, it's also a problem, because when the oven is too hot, like you need 170, 180 degrees, and it's more than 200. This is going this chemical reactions we are talking about, they are going to happen very, very, very fast, but the structure is not ready, and then it's going to this raising is too fast, the cake is not solid enough, and it's going to collapse. When the oven is too cold, which can happen as well, especially if your oven is not working properly. What I would recommend, even if you have a display in your oven, believe me, sometimes you can't trust what your oven display shows, and the temperature that's really inside the oven can be totally different. And then what we do in this case, we buy very cheap on the internet thermometer. It's really cheap, it's something 2-4 pounds, if I remember. Just buy one and use it, because if the temperature is too cold and takes too long for the preparation to reach the temperatures where the chemical reactions happen, what happened? The liquids, what is light in the preparation, is going to decant, to separate. The starches will go down, and then believe me, is even worse than be too cold, because all the starches and everything is going to become like a gelatin, and the preparation in the end is very heavy, won't raise. One tip I can give you also about the thermometer is, the thermometer has to be placed inside the oven while the oven is cold. Not like I open when it reaches the temperature and I hang there to check. No, this has to be there. And believe me, these thermometers, even the cheapest one, is very accurate. Well, another reason, and believe me, this happened to me, and sometimes still happens, because we try to do things very fast and ignoring very simple things. Cake is overflowed This is something that happens to everyone. Why this happens? It's not something about the recipe. The first thing we used to think is, I added too much baking powder or yeast to my cake and then it's over. But it's not what most of the time happen. What happened is that we took the recipe. We are using a recipe that sometimes we even know the recipe. We are used to bake it, but we are using the wrong cake tin. However, there is no really wrong cake tin. What happened is we have to adjust the preparation, the dough, to the size of our cake tin. How do we do it? How I do it is I take the cake tin, the one I intend to use, and then I fill up with water till the top, and I wait. Of course, you have to do the tar for the cake tin. Then you fill till the top and see how much it is in volume, and then you make your preparation. You can even by looking see when you put all the ingredients together how much is going to be the weight, because for example, if your cake tin, if you weight the water inside the cake tin and you come to 1 kilo, this means that your preparation cannot fill the cake tin more than 750 grams. This has to be maximum 3/4 from the cake tin. This is the right amount. If your cake tin is for 1 kilo and you have there like 200 grams, this might be a problem as well. And this technique, let's say so, always work. You can do lots of different calculations. If you are using a square one and turn into, so I'm going to prepare to bake in a round one, you have many calculations, but this the way I'm telling you is one of the simple ways that exist to do the same work. Well, the temperature of the ingredients, is this a legend? No. Might happen that your preparation is going to work if you just grab some eggs from the fridge and your milk from the fridge and then you mix with flour and everything, but the ingredients in the same temperature, they work much better. Sometimes I can't give you one exact example right now. The only one that I can think of quickly here is the butter, because when we say butter in room temperature, because it's going to be creamy, it's going to mix easier with the other ingredients, of course. But if you want to make crumble, this butter has to be cold, because you don't want the butter to melt. Then the temperature of the ingredients is very important. I'm telling you, it might work if they are in different temperatures, but using the ingredients in the right temperature, it's going to be more successful. When we talk, another comment about this topic, when we are talking about the cheesecake, the baked cheesecake, the temperature of ingredients, the temperature of your cream cheese is very important to make sure the outcome is going to be very creamy and very smooth. In this case, the temperature of the ingredients is crucial. Well, another thing that might be a reason for your recipes not work is to mix dry ingredients separated to liquid ingredients, and sugar belongs to the liquid ingredients because it melts. It's very important when the recipe says mix dry ingredients first and then liquids later. It's very important. When we are talking about bread, in gluten, especially in gluten-free preparations, we have a blend of flours, and it's very, very important to mix all the flours first before you add any liquid into it, and that the liquids are very well mixed before, because it's not going to work the same when you mix the flours when the liquids are already inside. It's much nicer, the outcome, if you mix the flours before and you blend it really nice. And especially adding salt in the end. So it's going to be a long explanation why you should do that, but when you see this instruction, just follow them. Well, we have for cakes, we have different baking methods. We have creamy and direct. When you, it might happen that the same preparation works in all the three methods, but some recipes work better with one than the other. And then if you have an indication, so the instruction is to do one, you can try, you can test, but no, actually this might be one of the reasons why your recipe, your preparation is not working, but I would encourage you to test, because it's very important for you to understand what's the difference. What else? Cocoa powder and chocolate. Cocoa powder is very, so comes automatically in our mind. Okay, I have a plain preparation, vanilla one, white one, and I just want to turn into a chocolate one. Cocoa powder is one ingredient that might dry your recipe. You have to be very careful when just adding cocoa powder to the recipe, because it's one of the ingredients that retains, that absorbs the liquid from the recipe, and then would be important to adjust the recipe, replacing a bit of the flour with the cocoa powder. Is also a long subject to talk about it right now, but the cocoa powder might also be the reason why the preparation is not working. And the same happens with chocolate. Chocolate, 70%, 50%, 54%, 30-something% white chocolate. They, on top of having different amounts of cocoa, they also, cocoa solids, they have also different recipes from brand to brand. You find different recipes. Then when you replace chocolates, when you have one chocolate in the recipe and you replace with another one, make sure at least you have the same amount of cocoa solids. And if you don't, like you are changing milk chocolate with, you are replacing milk chocolate with dark chocolate, 70%, for example, like the ones we use here, you have a smaller amount of chocolate to reach the same outcome in terms of structure and moist and everything, because flavor is obviously different. Well, chocolate. And now the most common, so first, the second most common reason is the oven, but the most common reason now is, Chef, I'm trying to do a recipe I found on the internet and it's not working. Then I have to tell you that will break your heart, but many recipes on the internet, they are wrong. They miss ingredients. They have the wrong amount of ingredients because at some point someone typed the recipe and did it wrong. This might happen, and that's one of the reasons the recipe just don't work. I took lots of, when I was studying, when I was doing my tests, I took lots of recipes on the internet that just don't work. There is even one that till today I'm trying to find the right one, because I can't understand what they did there what is wrong, but just don't work. And I asked other people to try and just don't work. When you learn, when you study, when you do lots of tests, you at some point you are capable to understand what you look at the recipe and you already know why this don't work. And what would be my advice? If you really want to bake something that you see on internet, make sure other people did it. And they wrote some reviews saying I tried and it works properly. So doesn't mean that that's going to work for you, because the recipe I'm telling you is one that many people write there. So many people said I did and just don't work, and I did and works, and with me didn't work, with other colleagues just didn't work. It might be the reviews are not accurate, are not true. But if like 10 people are saying it works, you have a higher chance. Well, I can't think about other things right now, but most of the time these are the reasons. If you can think about them, you cover most of the reasons that might be destroying your preparations. I hope this class, this content was useful for you, and from now you have an idea about what's happening when your recipe is not working. Remember, you always can ask your questions here and I will try to answer them. If you find this content interesting, it's helping you, don't forget to subscribe and to like this video, so I know the content I'm bringing you is helping you somehow. Thank you for watching.